Welcome back. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, and Rovi. And today we're going to be talking about another update with Bitmap.
Another one, dude.
And there's a discussion forming, I-Man.
Oh, yeah. Discussions are always happening, dude. That's the nature of Twitter, right?
Yeah, but I find this one to be the most interesting because it really pings the ability for people to look at Bitmaps and figure out exactly what is about to happen and what is going to happen.
Okay.
So I want to read this tweet by Jack Liu, which hopefully we get him on the podcast soon.
Yeah.
And he says, why would someone want to buy a parcel right now when an entire district costs $8?
Well, that was, at the time of the tweet, that's how much floor price was. But I believe floor price is like around $10, $11 at the current moment. So still,
that's a good point because the number keeps going up, right?
It does keep going up. So that's kind of one of the counter arguments is you can kind of extrapolate down the line, right? Because there is a finite. I mean, technically, it's an infinite supply of these district blocks, but there is like a finite element to them because of how constricted of an introduction element there is. Like only 144 a day, right?
Yeah. Did you know that we're more than just a YouTube channel? We also built MetaZone, the first app store for the Metaverse. Buy, sell, and explore a new class of digital assets like our flagship game Rovi.ai. Support us by collecting your digital assets through MetaZone at metazone.io. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated. All right, back to the video.
So there really is like a limit to them, like in context of the billions of people on Earth.
Correct.
The potential collector base of these things,
it's significantly smaller than the human population.
Right. And even at the current rate of introduction, right? So yeah, there is the main value attribution at the moment is this is pretty scarce.
Yeah.
If you're contextualizing what Bitmap can become as the actual infrastructure layer of the metaverse.
Yeah.
In parallel to how big the internet has become, if it's that, then these things are going to be tremendously valuable someday, right?
Yeah.
Companies are going to want to own these things and
right.
deploy their IP and stuff on top of them, right? So.
Yeah, and so we're 24 hours removed from the announcement from Blockimoto that the parceling has commenced, and they've talked about and they've explained all the details for inscribing a parcel.
Yeah.
So it's a simple transaction ID block height bitmap.
Right. And
you have to be an owner of a district to inscribe a parcel of that district that you own.
Right. Yeah, and so this part of this standard is also how closely integral tracking decentralized indexing is in this whole process, right? Because without that, platforms like ourselves, mscribe, we wouldn't be able to authorize in a trustless manner whether or not you're actually who it is you claim you are as a user of our platform, right? It kind of operates as a protocol.
Yeah,
we're not there individually interviewing each user, right? Like, hey man,
correct.
We're not verifying their humanity or making sure they actually own what they have.
Yeah.
Own what they say they have, right? That's all being proven and verified and authenticated through this indexing process, right?
Yeah.
That mscribe is leveraging. So that is also part of the standard. And that's why, platforms like this can't even exist in the first place, right?
Yeah, we have to depend on indexers.
Yeah.
And Track is working on decentralizing their entire network so that developers and developers can create their own sort of GraphQL. If you understand what the graph is, this will allow developers to create their own metrics for indexing.
Correct. So because of all that, having said all that, so that is the primitives of the now, right? That's what's going to enable what it is Jack is exactly talking about. And I think the whole narrative of the space is going to shift in this direction, right?
Yeah.
We've inscribed all the bitmaps, the block out happening on a daily basis now. Yeah. There's actually quite a competition for these newly minted blocks, which is fucking crazy to see.
Yeah, I went to Unisat and I looked up the latest block and there was seven inscriptions.
Yeah, so the predictions came true, right? There's going to be quite a lot of competition for this stuff, especially as the floor price continues to rise.
Yeah.
The motivation to try and snag one of these off the block, the fresh mint is greater, right? So it's interesting. Everything's kind of falling in line with how we expected it to.
That's right.
We're not doing this. You guys are doing this. Yeah. But we thought this would happen, right? And so now it's okay, what's next, right?
Yeah.
The parcel stuff.
So it leads to the questions why would we want to enable parceling if things are going so well.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that's what people are kind of like, gut instinct, like worried about. It's like, yeah, things are going well. The projections look positive.
Yeah.
This market looks healthy. We're growing.
Yeah. So let's stick with this this line of thinking. So like, to what end though?
I mean, yeah. To what end? I think right now the majority consensus around like, what should be enthused or positive about is like the degenomics of like what's happening here.
Yeah.
Right. Which, in other words, like things like scarcity mattering the most. As and we've seen this before traditionally in a lot of different markets from our own personal experience in Decentraland. Something like this happened similarly, right? There was a wearables market, which was a very like scarce market in the beginning.
Yeah, only Decentraland could create wearables.
Right, and a lot of people only saw the value in that. It's like, yeah, this is very restricted. There's less likely for like an oversupply type of scenario.
Yeah. And if you remember, those scarce wearables were basically given away at events. There was like free mints essentially, kind of like what we're seeing now.
Yeah, exactly.
20s.
Yeah, so a lot of that was, so the people supporting that were just, hopefully we remain down this pathway of like restrictive access and increasing demand only through like, I don't know, like narrative support instead of like actual tangible valuable creation, stuff like that. In hopes that, the next guy who comes in after me will buy my asset at a higher valuation because this narrative did so well.
Yeah.
And we did such a good job at restricting access.
Yeah, correct.
And we limited creativity as a result and like real value creation,
Right.
So, yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of creativity in that timeline.
There's no real value creation there.
Yeah.
Which is something, that's why I call it degenomics, degeneracy in economics.
Yeah.
Get it, dude? I'm clever, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, like, and a lot of crypto is fueled by that, right? It's just kind of like narrative driven and tokenomics scheme.
Yeah.
Not so much true value creation, right? So
very much like meme tokens, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, because I mean, you could create some value with a meme token, but it's very sparse.
Yeah.
Right.
So what it is we want to enable with these parcels, right? Like what we're actually enabling is giving the people who own these maps to kind of like the necessary foundations and tools to bring about real value, however they see fit, right? Like that is what was part of the Bitmap theory from Satoshi Nakamoto, like original documentation, right?
And we're talking about a wide spectrum of what people consider value.
Yeah.
Like if you're an artist, you might want a gallery, right? If you're a musician, you might want like a 3D experience, like checking out music, right? So it could be anything.
It's super anything. That's what I love about this project and this ecosystem, right? Because typically the metaverse endeavors we've participated in the past are very limited in scope, very much like a guided whole ecosystem, right? Usually set forth by like the original foundation members and stuff. This one is like completely open to interpretation, like, and that's the thing. We all hold access to like add in our own value, contributions. Yeah. So like you're saying, it could be an artist. I don't know. The Bitmap punks are going ham. Like everybody's kind of aligning with like the coolness, the culture of the Bitmap punk. Yeah. Why wouldn't I want to be able to like onboard a community who also aligns with what it is these Bitmap punks represent?
Yeah, and I feel like this particular question is good, but it's a result of like the timing of everything, because Nakamoto didn't necessarily want to just announce bitmaps. He wanted to announce bitmaps and a way to inscribe parcels, but he didn't do that because there wasn't an indexer that was around to enable that.
Exactly.
And then along came Track, and then all of a sudden we have a way to inscribe parcels.
Correct.
And so on that announcement, whenever we did that video on June 13th, when we were talking about bitmaps, when there's only 300 inscriptions, there should have been a way to inscribe parcels as well. But like I said, there was no technical way of doing that without Track or 100%. An indexer.
Yeah, I think this is fine. I'm liking the pace as far as like how this whole ecosystem is kind of like unraveling. Yeah. And it's very much community driven, right? Like we stepped up to the, with Inscribe itself, we stepped up, we saw like a market fit, right? Yeah. And we knew at some point, this is going to have to be part of the whole, how the ecosystem expands. Yeah. Right. Again, we have all that experience. We understand how the metaverse kind of like proliferates, right? So, and in this case, it's not a centralized organization putting together all these components and then putting them out there for the, the community to leverage. It's individual components, like, aligning with one another,
Right.
but to still create like that overall cohesion
Right.
of the ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and we got to remember things move fast in crypto, and if we recall, on June 30th was blockout, and so that was basically 2 weeks ago, dude.
That is crazy. 2 weeks is definitely feels like a couple of months already.
It does feel like it, right?
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks from the blockout, we have parceling, right? So a way to inscribe parcels. So
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, there wasn't so much of a lag time between like this question being relevant to being irrelevant.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
The fact that even though it feels like it's been a couple of months of development, like we're able to get out like an MVP within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And let's get the community, the ecosystem expanding, and let's get like the right tools, like I said, out there. So now we can enable. And that's the whole point of like why Bitmap's important, right? We're just laying we're laying layers of like different standards and protocols that everybody can kind of like tap into together.
Yeah.
Right. And we can create this like metaverse ecosystem that tops every single other one that exists.
Yeah.
Because none of the other ones out there are going to be able to have like that much community leverage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because on the next tab here, I have Ordinal's wallet. And they've been keeping track of owners, and we're about 500 away from 20,000, dude.
And this is basically the last owner count pre-parceling. Right? These are like purely Bitmap owners.
Correct.
So and let's do another extrapolation prediction here.
Yeah.
We're gunning for 1 million owners.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy to say.
Yeah.
Because in context of like all of Web3, is there 1 million, like anybody, like maybe like a Dogecoin or something like the top tier
maybe
crypto blue chips have like 1 million plus.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Doge.
Yeah, like the top tier blue chip
Yeah.
crypto tokens, not even like the top tier NFT project, because for one, they can't.
Yeah, there's no NFT project with 1 million holders.
Zero. So this will be the first.
Maybe Axie Infinity, but
that's a good point.
it's like I don't know.
Actually, I don't know either.
Many.
No, because they have millions of users who were like delegates. Remember?
Yes. Yeah, they weren't.
So
owners.
they weren't owners.
Correct.
They were like they came in and leveraged the assets. They're probably like a much smaller handful of people owned.
Yeah.
So, but they got close.
If Bitmap does reach 1 million holders, we're talking about rare air here.
Right. In the sense, what do you mean by rare air?
Right. In the sense that it's like
a space.
Bitcoin,
right?
Ethereum, like
yeah.
That's about it.
I agree. That's why we're gunning for that. That's why we're kind of like trying to spark this movement, Occupy Bitcoin, right?
That's right.
That's what it means to us. It's like, dude, this is a big achievement if we can get there. And we're bringing about the tools, and the Bitmap standard already has like the whole architecture design right there at our fingertips, and it's all sourced from the data of Bitcoin. That's the beauty behind it, right? It's not some artificial thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about like why 1 million though, like.
Yeah,
why does that matter?
Other than like the psychological barrier of like ones and zeros?
Yeah. Other than that, yeah. Like why 1 million?
Well, like you said, the rare air.
It's a rare air, but it's most important to bring in developers.
Right.
Right. If we don't bring in the developers, these bitmaps are largely going to be empty.
I 1000% agree. Yeah, because right now we're just talking about parceling, and then we've already discussed like the layering of standards and protocols, right? That's what made the internet.
Right.
That's what's going to make the open metaverse, right? So this is so far from what we've seen, this is the best shot we have at achieving something in parallel of the internet, but for like the 3D spatial computing space.
Yeah.
This is the best shot we got so far.
Yeah.
But the layers that are to come are much more complex.
Significantly like 1,000x more complex.
Yeah. I think that can't be understated, and everybody who's participating this early needs to understand that.
Yeah.
So that you don't get discouraged down the line whenever, I'm already seeing the memes on Twitter. It's like, the skeleton memes where it's like, I'm sitting here waiting for the next thing. It's like, dude, it's only been like a couple of days, dude. You got to relax.
Crazy.
But that's the nature of Web3, right?
Yeah.
Largely very impatient, because we're being bombarded by just so much shit that's going on.
Yeah. Like that TikTok shit.
Don't even bring that up, dude. Not yet. We'll talk about that on the podcast. Dude.
Yeah.
That's some weird stuff.
Yeah.
TikTok's
Humans are essentially evolving or devolving.
I don't know. We'll talk about that another time. But
But yeah, ultimately, it's important to understand. Like, we have to continue moving like technically forward. We can't.
But you brought up the most important part to that. Yeah, it's like, so who's going to enable the most complex layers of this open metaverse standard and framework? Right, it's the devs.
That's the devs. Yeah.
So what?
In the same way that we've come to a consensus with the .bitmap standard and the parcel standard and all that, it's in the same way the developers would come to a consensus on like what is important for the next standards, right? It could be something simple that we can all understand as avatars. Yeah. Like maybe we're going to select as a developer community a single system of avatars. Could be VRMs, could be whatever's out there. Yeah. But that consensus is going to get adopted by IMSO Chris, and then Expector, and like all these different builders on top of Bitmap. They'll leverage whatever the consensus is because it makes sense.
Yeah, and then therefore they can bring in about like easy like user interfacing processes, I guess, for the non-developer folk who do own these things, and they I see you guys, you devs have done a great job, developing these tools and these frameworks, and I can come in and leverage them. And I could inscribe a parcel and plug into these types of tools and install them, and now I can actually participate in this thing we're calling the metaverse, right? Yeah. Look at that, dude. Little old me, dude. Yeah. I never pushed a single line of code in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never downloaded Blender or Maya. I've never made a 3D model. Yeah. But because of you guys as an ecosystem have done a good enough job at attracting the right developers to build these primitives, me as an everyday lad in the world, I get access to this, right? And I can participate, just like the internet. Yeah. I don't code, I don't do any of that, but I could jump on the internet and I could do some shit.
Hey, you dabbled with HTML. Dabbled
is like an overstatement, dude. Yeah. Like I was told like what HTML to like copy and paste basically.
Yeah, but you're able to edit it a little bit.
I guess. But you know what I'm saying, right? Little old me, dude. I'm able to come in and like access and leverage the internet and all of its glorious functionality. Yeah. Without having any idea how any of this is happening. Right. But I'm a power user, potentially. Yeah. Because all these devs have laid forth the primitives and the right standards and frameworks for me to do that. Yeah. Right. And not just me, all of us.
Right? Yeah. And that's the single most important thing, because that's how you generate $1 trillion ecosystem. Right. You build on top of the standards and you enable developers to build on top of that so that they can go crazy.
Yeah. And I think an important thing to go back to Jack's comment here, it's like, as these primitives start to roll out and these new value mechanisms start to unravel, and then therefore more and more people are coming in, they're seeing the motivations to want to inscribe their own parcels. That process itself is called activation, right? We're activating bitmaps to even, basically, if you ever played like an MMORPG, like if you played like in a PvE realm, you had to like flag yourself for combat, right? Sure. You can't just like go out in the world and you can't get attacked. Yeah. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like you have to activate your bitmap here to flag to the world that, inscription is accessible here. You could take part in my ecosystem. Yes. Right. So every time that happens, we're actually we're making it more scarce, the bitmaps, right? By activating more, we're taking and inactive or like non-activated bitmaps out of circulation. Therefore, those become more valuable.
Yeah, and your bitmaps are still going to be valuable because it could be used to enable an operating system, right, for the district. Yeah. Right. So they still are going to hold value, even though a bunch of people are holding parcels from your district. Yeah. Right. There's going to be a role for the .bitmap holder.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't predict and project exactly what all these individual ecosystems are going to morph into, right? Yeah. The individual bitmaps themselves. Yeah. But we can assume at some point somebody's going to create such a killer like app or killer experience, killer whatever it is, that you're going to want to own that block. Yeah. Because like whoever the predecessor was that laid forth those groundworks and like, brought about just like the right lightning in a bottle type shit. Sure. There's tremendous value in that, right? It's like having ownership of a protocol or like a whole
or a community.
Community, an ecosystem, whatever. Yeah. If it's generating revenue, even better.
That's exactly.
And that is always the goal, of course, right?
Yeah. You got to make it sustainable. It's like if you start a website, you got to automatically start paying for hosting, right? It's $10 a month or whatever it is. Yeah. And you got to figure out how to sustain it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing probably is going to happen with Bitmap.
I think so too. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, this is literally just ground zero. So yeah, these discussions have to continue on. I mean,
yeah, and we're gonna try to have Jack here in the next couple of days, so
Yeah.
we can go into this and get his perspective on things. And and he's built OrdSwap, and he's focusing on Bitmaps as well.
yeah, I think they're just now rolled out, at least conceptually, like how the bitmap imagery, the rendering of like the actual maps is going to like be factored into their marketplace, which is going to be important.
Yeah, correct.
And it's not just that. It's like, what else are we going to attribute to these bitmaps as far as like consensus or community agreed upon value attributes, right?
Yeah.
So that we can, we can create market dynamics for this stuff, collectability and all
That's
that.
right.
So that is like the next step, right?
Yeah, so that's it for us. If you guys have any questions, make sure you leave a comment down below. Follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner, at MetaZone.io, and at Roby AI, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.